With how important the sun is to the story of Dark Souls, it may come as a surprise that it's pretty insignificant in Elden Ring. Other celestial bodies like the moon, the stars, and meteorites are all central to the game's story and world building, but the sun is almost never mentioned, and it's so tiny that many players may not even notice it in the sky.
Ooh.
Yet the sun plays a huge role in the Eclipse, which could save the soulless demigods from their fate. This is a topic that I think deserves a lot more discussion, though my perspective might be a bit skewed. I don't really use forums that often, and I don't know what the deal with the Elden Ring subreddit is. Either way, let's compile everything we can learn about the Eclipse here in video format, starting with an introduction to the demigods Miquella the Unalloyed and Godwyn the Golden. For Miquella, he and his twin sister Malenia were the children of Queen Marika and Lord Radagon. Both of the twins suffered afflictions from birth, with Malenia rotting from the inside out and Miquella being cursed with eternal childhood. For a while, Miquella would be aligned with the Golden Order Fundamentalists, a group that studied universal laws and practiced holy incantations. But Miquella cared for his sister, and since fundamentalism could do nothing to treat her scarlet rot, he would instead turn towards unalloyed gold. This material helps ward away the meddling of outer gods, and since Malenia's curse comes from the god of scarlet rot, then something like a needle made from unalloyed gold could help treat her condition. Then there's Godwyn, who seems to have been the child of Queen Marika and Lord Godfrey. This would mean that Godwyn is Miquella's half-brother. However, in the Night of the Black Knives, Godwyn was the first of the demigods to die. But not really. The Black Knife assassins wanted to carve a rune into Godwyn's body that would be able to restore death to the Elden Ring, which would kill him in the process. Before this rune was complete, another demigod died elsewhere at the same time, breaking the rune into 2 curse marks and leaving both demigods only half dead. Now, Godwyn has died in soul alone, leaving his body in a state of undeath that would become the origin of the Deathblight curse. According to this spooky lore ghost, a proper death means returning to the Erd Tree. So, despite his condition, Godwyn was buried at the Erd Tree's roots in the deep root depths. This did not end up returning Godwyn's soul to the Erd Tree, and instead, Godwyn's Deathblight curse spread through the Erd Tree's roots across the lands between, resulting in various forms of undeath. In what seemed to be the words of Miquella, who we already know had a close relationship with his family, "O brother, Lord brother, please die a true death." This is where the Eclipse comes into play. Castle Sol can be found in the mountaintops of the Giants, and in the Church of the Eclipse, we get this dialogue from another spooky lore ghost. "O great sun, frigid son of Sol, surrender yourself to the Eclipse. Grant life to the soulless bones." Now we see that the Eclipse may hold the power to restore life to a soulless body, such as Godwyn's. The Church of the Eclipse also holds a special curved sword referred to as the Eclipse Shuttle, the storied sword and treasure of Castle Sol that depicts an eclipsed sun drained of color. In Sol, the sight of an eclipse inspires a dreadful awe, preventing an onlooker from averting his gaze. For clarification, let's cover some concepts in astronomy. So, in real life, we know that the moon orbits the Earth and the Earth orbits the sun. In Latin, these 3 bodies are referred to as Luna, Terra, and Sol. This system allows for both lunar and solar eclipses. The first of these occurs when the Earth is in between the moon and the sun, covering the moon in its shadow, and the second occurs when the moon is in between the Earth and the sun, leaving the shadow of the moon over a portion of the Earth. During a total solar eclipse, most of the sun is obscured, but its outermost layer still shines around the edges of the moon, appearing as a ring of light. This was the basis for the design of the Eclipse Shuttle, along with a couple of other items, the first of which is the Eclipse Crest Heater Shield, which describes how the sun in eclipse is said to be the symbol of the wandering mausoleum where the soulless demigods slumber. This, of course, means that Godwyn is not the only soulless demigod in this world. Wandering mausoleums are these giant, 4-legged rock structures that carry around buildings that have a similar architecture to that of the underground eternal cities. Inside every one of these lies the corpse of a soulless demigod, which can all be used to duplicate 1 boss remembrance each. Many of these mausoleums feature a giant bell that rings in constant mourning for the soulless demigods. A total of 7 mausoleums are found throughout the game, notably including in the Eternal City, where Godwyn is found, an area described as a mausoleum compound, and next to Castle Sol itself. A third lore ghost in the Weeping Peninsula gives further insight to these creatures. The mausoleum prowls, cradling the soulless demigod. O Marika, Queen Eternal, he is your unwanted child. So why are these demigods all soulless? Were they always like this? The enemies known as mausoleum soldiers suggest otherwise. These soldiers followed their masters into death by severing their own heads from their bodies, which reflects how these demigods are all missing their heads. I think the evidence suggests that while Godwyn was the first of the demigods to become soulless, the others would soon follow afterwards. Godwyn's death was a pivotal moment in the history of the Lands Between.
That was the first recorded death of a demigod in all history, and it became the catalyst. Soon, the Elden Ring was smashed, and thus sprang forth the war known as the Shattering.
Godwyn's burial at the Erdtree's roots would then prove to be a mistake that would lead to Deathblight, Deathroot, and those who live in death being spread across the world. Whether the other demigods were unfortunate victims of the Deathblight curse, further attempts by the Black Knives to create a new rune, or maybe even test subjects for finding a cure for Deathblight, it was clear they couldn't be buried in the same manner as Godwyn. The Wandering Mausoleums help provide a physical barrier that minimizes the spread of destined death, which is another name for the Rune of Death's power. This is likely why the mausoleums are in constant motion until these skull-like growths are removed, as this is probably another result of Death's influence. Now, we can bring our attention back to the Eclipse. In addition to the mausoleum soldiers, the mausoleum knights are often found in the same areas. Their armor describes how these headless knights endlessly guarded the Wandering Mausoleum, and the wing-shaped ornaments on the back of their armor evoke the Deathbird. These Deathbirds still exist today, but in the time when there was no Erdtree, death was burned in their ghost flame. On top of referring to a creature that once ensured a true death, these wings take influence from the winged hussars, a type of Polish cavalry that used angelic imagery in their armor to intimidate and demoralize enemy forces. These knights also wield the Eclipse crest great shield, and its description explains how the Eclipse sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods. It aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. But why does the eclipsed sun help with this? Let's quickly cover another topic. This time, we'll be talking about astrology. In Elden Ring, different astral bodies can be tied to one's fate, with each one being significant in their own way. For example, Lady Ranni's fate is tied to the motion of the stars, which were held in stasis for some time by the Star Scourge, General Radahn. A few other bodies can carry specific purposes and ideas, such as how the Blood Star and the Falling Star of Estelle are both described to be ill omens. In astrology, a solar eclipse is a signifier of a new beginning, at least according to a quick Google search. I won't spoil the details just to be safe, but in both Dark Souls and the Berserk manga, some of the biggest influences on Elden Ring, a solar eclipse is used to represent rebirth and the coming of a new age. With all of this in mind, it sounds like the imagery of the eclipse helps repel destined death, and once the eclipse passes, new life would be granted to the soulless demigods. However, it doesn't seem like eclipses can naturally occur in this world. As mentioned earlier, the sun is unnaturally small in the sky, but the moon is enormous, so it should be easy to cover the sun, right? Well, this assumes that Elden Ring's planetary orbits work the same way as they do in real life. You see, our moon's orbit isn't on the same plane as the Earth's orbit around the sun. But for any plane that a celestial body is on, all elliptical orbits around that body will intersect the plane at 2 different points. This means that during the Earth's annual orbit, there are 2 points of the year where the moon's orbit can create a perfect line with the sun, allowing lunar and solar eclipses to occur. The sky in Elden Ring actually includes 2 moons, one of which is visible from anywhere, while the other can usually only be seen near the Moonlight Altar in Liurnia. Both of them appear motionless in the sky, which could be possible if they orbited at the same rate of the planet's rotation, but if we pay attention to where the sun rises and sets, we would have to map out their orbits to look something like this, both of which entirely avoid the plane that this planet orbits the sun on. Also, neither of these orbits are around the system's center of mass, so this would only be possible if the 2 moons exerted an opposing force on each other. Weird situations like this, combined with the fact that the stars don't change positions in the night sky, suggests that maybe it's the sun that orbits the lands between, rather than everything rotating in such a way that all bodies appear motionless except the sun. Of course, this could all just be the developers not bothering with a complex solar system, but the in-game result is the same either way. The sun never passes behind either moon, so unless the eclipsed sun of Sol refers to another star entirely, some outside force would need to influence its trajectory. Looking towards the Church of the Eclipse and the dialogue of nearby spirits, the purpose of Castle Sol may have been to bring about the eclipse through prayer, and other pieces of evidence point towards Miquella cooperating with them. For more context, let's look at Commander Nile, the veteran general of Sol. He is described as a lone survivor who commanded spirits to defend his long-past master. This aging general could not die, nor did he have anywhere to fade away. Niall summons these spirits during his boss battle, but this may also include the mausoleum soldiers and knights, and I suspect that the demigod within the nearby mausoleum was the master that Niall once served. His name, appearance, and moveset all suggest he is closely related to another commander named O'Neill, who can be found in the swamp of Aeonia. While some evidence suggests that these two generals worked with the forces of Stormvale, it's also hinted that they fought on the side of Miquella and Melania. Niall was the leader of an army of no nation, but if he were to successfully summon the Eclipse, maybe his men could gain access to Miquella's Haligtree, which acted as a haven for the outcast. Half of the medallion that could open the way to the Haligtree was entrusted to Castle Sol, and the other half was given to the Albinaurics. We know that this Eclipse project extended to Godwyn as well, as the Eclipse shuttle mentions setting the lusterless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flames. So, if the prayers of Castle Sol could summon the Eclipse, Niall's master could be revived, the path to the Haligtree would be opened, and Godwyn would be freed of his curse. There's just one problem. The Eclipse never happened. In the words of this fourth and final spirit NPC, Lord Miquella, forgive me. The sun has not been swallowed. Our prayers were lacking. Your comrade remains soulless. I will never set my eyes upon it now. Your divine Haligtree. After all their work, the forces of Sol never achieved their goals. Miquella has since gone missing from the Haligtree, and the demigods remain forever soulless. Not everything in this world has a happy ending. In fact, the opposite seems to be true for most cases. At some point, maybe I'll cover how to find better endings for a handful of characters. But for now, let me know any of your thoughts, findings, or feedback for this topic of the Eclipse. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.